if you can't get weight off, what's most important is to be fit. So it is much better to be fat and fit than to be lean and unfit.
Oh, okay,
much
interesting.
better. I think that there's a great prejudice against heavy people. It wasn't always this way. There's been times in history and there are places in the world where people have valued, heavy set people. Also, the consumption of meat is one of the worst things for the environment, especially beef. And I think that's very clear data there. So I'm really not a supporter of the keto diet except for very special people.
Hello and welcome to Kaplankaya on the southwestern Aegean coast of Turkey. We are recording the podcast, the Harvest series, where we interview amazing speakers, practitioners and artists joining the Harvest Summit. I hope you will enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to this podcast, the Harvest series podcast. Today my guest is Dr. Weil, a renowned integrative medicine pioneer. Andrew Weil advocates holistic health practice worldwide, including the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Dr. Weil has authored numerous books on topics such as natural health, herbal medicine, and aging gracefully. We're going to define integrative medicine and its benefits first, and then at the end of this interview finish with some quick questions about trendy food habits.
Good.
Hello Dr. Weil, welcome to Turkey and to Harvest series.
Thank you.
You just arrived.
I arrived in Istanbul a few days ago and here at Harvest just yesterday.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you explain, I guess not everybody knows what it is, can you explain exactly what is integrative medicine?
It is the thoughtful combination of conventional medicine with natural therapies and other therapies from other healing traditions with a focus on the body's innate healing potential, pays attention to all aspects of lifestyle, and I think it's the way of the future.
So you call it medicine, and I heard you integrate conventional medicine.
Yes.
Because one critique sometimes people do or classic misunderstanding is people say like, we hear this story of people who can cure disease by changing lifestyle, but we also have some people who stop completely using medicine and change lifestyle, and it's not a happy ending.
Conventional medicine does some things very well. If I were in a serious car accident, I would not want to first go to an herbalist or a chiropractor. I'd like to go to a trauma center and get put back together, but then I might, as soon as I could, use other methods to speed the healing process. So our center at the University of Arizona is in the Health Sciences Center. We are in the heart of a medical campus of a major university. And we work with conventional doctors and with conventional medicine. I think it's important for people to know when and when not to use conventional medicine.
That was my next question.
And if you use conventional medicine, what else can you do to reduce toxicity and increase the efficacy? I'll tell you a story. A few years ago I was in Beijing and I was taken on a tour of a very large hospital called Guangnan Hospital. The whole hospital is dedicated to integrative medicine. And when you walk in, it looks like a modern hospital in America or in Europe. The largest department was Oncology, and I was presented many cancer patients there. They use surgery, radiation, chemotherapy as needed, but then in addition, all patients get very good nutritional therapy, acupuncture, massage, but especially very sophisticated herbal therapy designed to reduce the toxicity of the conventional treatments, increase their efficacy, improve quality of life and reduce risk of recurrence. And it made me very sad watching that so few people in the US and in other countries can access that kind of care. There is a growing, our center has trained a number of oncologists. There is a Society for Integrative Oncology in America, but the demand for this is very high and the supply of people who can provide it is not great at the moment.
What's the latest data on the impact of herbs on these treatments?
I think with the Chinese herbs, there's very good evidence that some of these can protect the immune system, for example, can increase general vitality in people. But they're not well known in the West, but there is a great deal of research on them now.
What would you say to someone like me who would do integrative medicine to prevent disease, but who drug as soon as I feel pain or something. I take a paracetamol with
Well, I think you want to find out is there something else available that's more natural that might be less harmful. For example, a great many people take sleep aids, both prescribed or ones you buy over the counter. None of them reproduce natural sleep. They all interfere with thinking. Some of them, it looks as if they increase risk of dementia if you use them over time. And so, they all suppress dreaming, which is an important aspect of healthy sleep. So there are other things available. There's an herb called valerian that has been used for centuries in Europe.
Yes.
It's very safe, very effective, and there's melatonin, which is also very safe and very effective.
Yeah.
So I would recommend those over the drugs.
Okay.
So you want to find out what else is available for the condition that you have.
Okay, but it must be the only thing is we want quick fix.
Well, this is a problem, and this is, in integrative medicine, a lot of emphasis is on lifestyle. And I have seen lifestyle change be very, very effective, but it takes time and work. And if you talk to people about changing how they eat, a lot of people don't want to put the effort in. Yeah. They'd rather just take a medicine. But the problem is that if you use the medicines, they fail you over time and often can cause adverse effects. Whereas if you stick with the lifestyle changes, those are permanent fixes. But it's hard to convince people of that if they're looking for quick fixes.
Yeah. Can you outline the foundational principle of an ideal diet amidst the myriads of options like detox, keto, raw vegetables?
Very confusing.
Very confusing,
I advocate an anti-inflammatory diet because I think inflammation is the root cause of many diseases. And I based it on the Mediterranean diet because we have so much scientific evidence of that being the healthiest way to eat.
Good location here to
speak
about Mediterranean diet.
But I tweaked the Mediterranean diet by adding some Asian influences because I've spent much time in Japan and China, and I'm very familiar with things that are good there. So I added to the Mediterranean diet mushrooms, green tea. It's like matcha green tea, which we were talking about.
We're going to talk about this,
Yes, and meat occasionally, but fish definitely. Whole grains, olive oil as a main cooking oil, and I include dark chocolate in my anti-inflammatory diet because I think that's a healthy food.
Okay. You've mentioned...
But can I just say one other thing? The first step of the anti-inflammatory diet or any good way of eating is to try to stop eating refined, processed, and manufactured foods. That's what's doing us in, and I've heard it said that our great-grandparents wouldn't even recognize as food what most of us are eating today.
Yeah.
And that's a real problem.
Yes, true. Do you think there's people are more and more aware of this?
I see it going both directions.
Yeah.
I think there is in general, I think there's much greater awareness, and I also see people, especially, these times are very stressful, and I see people say, it doesn't matter, just eat whatever you want. So I see it going both ways, but certainly in America, where our food has not been great there, and now it has improved. America, you used to not be able to get any decent bread or beer or cheese, especially compared with France, for example. Mm-hmm. And now there are people making good quality bread and cheese and beer, so people are becoming more aware. But
and now we're having bad bread in France.
I know. I've read.
Can you measure the impact of processed food on health?
Well, there are people studying that and writing that, and I read a study recently where just for 1 month people ate nothing but processed food, and in that time gained weight, and all the markers of health got worse. So I think over even a short period of time that can be harmful.
Okay, you mentioned in the Mediterranean diet something a bit different that what I used to listen. It's about the proteins. A lot of biohackers or functional doctors say you have to eat a lot of meat. If you want muscle, you eat muscle. You don't share
I don't share that at all. And first of all, I think that many people eat too much protein. If you eat more protein than your body needs to make new tissue or to repair itself, it burns it as a fuel, and it's not a good fuel to burn compared to carbohydrate or fat because it doesn't burn clean. It leaves ashes in the form of amino acids that really increase the work of the liver and kidneys. So I think many people eat way too much protein, and there's an obsession with protein.
Yeah.
You know, how many times I became a vegetarian a long time ago, and I'm now a pescatarian. But when I became a vegetarian, the question I always got was, where are you getting your protein? You know, nobody ever asks you, where are you getting your fat? You know, or where are you getting your sugar? We're just obsessed with protein. So I think, first of all, there's too much. And I think people also eat way too much animal protein. So I recommend eating less of that and more vegetable protein. Also, the consumption of meat is one of the worst things for the environment, especially beef. And I think that's very clear data there. So I'm really not a supporter of the keto diet except for very special people.
Okay. In the Mediterranean diet, what would be the proportion of proteins in a meal?
I would say, around 20% of calories from protein, something like that, 20 to 30 maximum.
Okay, so it's really less than...
and more with fish and good quality dairy products like cheese and yogurt and vegetable protein.
Okay. What's the primary objective of a dietary regimen?
Well, I think first is to maintain health. You know, it is a fundamental thing of health. But I think also eating provides a great deal of pleasure. And one of the problems that I see today in people who are obsessed with the health effects of food is I think they really deny themselves the pleasure of eating. And I think that's one thing, you know, as an American going to countries like France or Italy, where you see people that really enjoy food and they think Americans are absolutely crazy about, you know, their obsession with health.
Okay, so a little glass of wine, if it makes you
yes,
happy,
exactly.
is okay.
Chocolate is okay, and eating good food with friends is
Camembert.
very good. Yeah.
Okay,
There's a term that's been proposed. It's not official yet, called orthorexia nervosa, which is to describe people who have an unhealthy obsession with the health effects of food, and this leads to terrible problems. There was I don't know whether you're familiar with, there's a famous image in America of the first Thanksgiving of pilgrims sitting with Indians at a table with lots of food. The New Yorker had a cartoon called The Last Thanksgiving. And it was 12 people sitting at a completely empty table. And they looked very unhappy, and they all had balloons over their head. One says, can't eat gluten, doesn't eat sugar, doesn't eat dairy, doesn't eat meat, and there is nothing to eat.
Okay, true.
That's a real problem, and I think it is good to enjoy food.
What do you think about carbs, carbohydrates?
I think people make a great mistake when they don't eat carbs. They don't distinguish between good carbs and bad carbs. So carbs that digest quickly raise blood sugar quickly, and that causes problems. If I ask people to name a whole grain food, many people say whole wheat bread. Whole wheat bread is not a whole grain food. Where are the grains? You know, it's basically colored white bread. When a grain is whole or cracked into a few big pieces, the starch is densely compacted, and it takes a long time for digestive enzymes to get in and convert it to sugar. When you mill a grain into flour, whether or not the bran is present or the germ is present, you convert the starch to a material that has an infinite surface area, and it's a snap for digestive enzymes to convert that to sugar. So there is a big difference between eating things made with flour and sugar that raise blood sugar quickly, and this causes insulin resistance and all the problems that follow from it. But there are good carbs, things like beans and winter squashes. You know, these are slow digesting carbohydrates, and they're very good to eat, and whole grains also. And, you know, I think one of the things that I object to with the keto diet and some of the paleo people, they tell people not to eat beans. Beans are really good food. First of all, they're cheap. So they're affordable, you know, even by people that don't have much money. They have a lot of fiber, they have vitamins, minerals, they have slow digesting carbohydrate and protein. It's very silly to tell people not to eat beans because they're bad.
Okay,
carbs.
So better chili con carne than pasta bolognese.
Yes. Although I have to say I love pasta, and pasta is a different carbohydrate from bread. Pasta, especially if you cook it the way the Italians do, so that it really is chewy, that is slower digesting than
Okay.
bread, because bread is all puffed up, and again, it's like easy to convert that to sugar.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
About weight loss, is it crucial not to be overweight?
Well, this is a very interesting question. First of all, the proportion of overweight people in many parts of the world now is increasing so rapidly. And doctors are always telling people that it's unhealthy to be overweight. I think that there's a great prejudice against heavy people. And it wasn't always this way. There's been times in history and there are places in the world where people have valued, heavy set people. But I think this prejudice against overweight even affects our medical thinking. I don't think it's necessarily unhealthy to be overweight. I think it's if you can't get weight off, what's most important is to be fit. So it is much better to be fat and fit than to be lean and unfit.
Oh, okay,
Much
interesting.
better.
Okay.
So if you or people or patients, really say they struggle, they can't get weight off, what you want to concentrate on is that they get the right kind of exercise, that they're eating a good kind of diet, they're doing everything else to maintain health. And in that case, I don't think the risks are so great.
Okay. What do you think about the concept of calories in and out?
Well, that is certainly a basic, just a basic equation, but I think that there are a lot of things that affect that. I think it's the type of calories also, and I think that's too simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
It works in the end, but
yeah,
you can be
right.
hungry if you. It's not like just the app to measure the calories are not the best way to be. You wouldn't recommend.
Here's
this
something that I find in my experience: if I eat food that's unsatisfying, even if I'm full, I want to eat something else. I'm not getting whatever I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of when Americans look, especially at France, they say, how can French people eat all this cheese and pastry and butter, and they're thinner than we are? But I think they eat less. I think many Americans they eat mindlessly. They're eating in front of the television, they're eating when they're driving in their cars, and they're eating such low quality food that it encourages them to eat more and more and more. But if you eat something that's really good and enjoy it, then I think you can be satisfied with smaller amounts.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Let's talk about how you became a food doctor, and
Yes.
what was your journey. Your book are bestsellers, and you're very popular doctor in the world. What qualities do you think people appreciate in you?
Many people say that my writing is very clear and I put into words things that they've always thought but they never put into words. So I think I can speak to people in ways that they understand. And I'm very truthful and honest, and I'm willing to change my opinions. If I learn that I've been saying something and then I read new evidence, I'll change what I wrote.
Okay. How do you think you distinguish yourself from your peers in the field of nutritional medicine?
Well, I began writing about nutrition in the era when everybody was focused on fat.
Yeah.
And this was when the manufacturers were making all of these non-fat and low-fat foods that were very unsatisfying. And in the period, at least in America, where people were eating more and more of these foods, they got fatter and fatter because they were eating more bad carbohydrates. The manufacturers put more sugar in the foods to make them tasty and so forth.
That's horrible. And the taste was bad.
Terrible.
Yeah, wow.
So I was writing at that time, and I disagreed with that concept, and I was writing about the importance of eating the right kinds of carbohydrates and the right kinds of fats, and that fat was not bad and olive oil was good. So, I was out of step with what people were saying, but I was right, and the time has come around to my side.
Having studied at Harvard and delved into the Amazonian herbology, how do you reconcile the two?
Well, I studied botany before I went into medicine, so I've always been fascinated with plants.
That's your access point. Yeah.
Yes, so I've always gardened. I've always grown a lot of my own food. I've always studied medicinal plants, and I use them in my practice. And I've found in general that I've gotten better results with plant medicine that I have with pharmaceutical medicine, and it's also much safer. So this is one of the things that I teach at my center, that I'd like doctors to be familiar with, the natural products that are available.
When conversing with a conventionally trained physician, what seems typically arise?
Well, in the early days, this is in the 1980s when my first books came out, I was hated by conventional doctors. They really saw me as somebody who was an enemy. And that's totally changed in the past years. So, it's no longer this, fight between two systems. And this is the whole point of integrative medicine. We're bringing things together. So I think that is happening, and it's been very satisfying.
So you don't have to address as much skepticism as you used to address before.
Not nearly as much, no.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of research to support what the recommendations that I make.
So the world has changed.
Yes, the world has changed. Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you integrate technology in your practice?
Well, if, as I said, we're in a major medical center, so if patients need to have standard physical examinations and diagnostic work, I would refer them to that. So make use of that technology.
Conventional technology.
Blood work and X-rays and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, but do you do like the IV? No, you don't do this kind of things. Yeah. I lived in Hong Kong for a few years, and I discovered a little bit the Chinese medicine, like the qi. And what surprised me is some friends from Hong Kong. They were upset at their doctor when they get sick in advance. So I found this very funny. Did you notice this?
Well, I've read that in I don't know how long ago, but traditionally doctors in China were paid as long as people were well, and then when they got sick, they're not paid. That was when they had to work. Yeah, that's an interesting concept.
And what was your experience like in Asia? You were mentioning Beijing, and it's true that it's when you go to the pharmacies.
Amazing to see all that. Yeah.
It's incredible. I wouldn't know where to start.
No, I think it's a lifetime of study, Chinese herbal medicine. But, we teach at our center, we have people who teach acupuncture and who give lectures on the use of Chinese herbs. And I don't know if this is true in Europe, but in America now, really in almost every city or town, there are practicing Chinese doctors. It's become very popular.
Yeah. And what's your favorite things from China? Yeah.
Well, a lot. I mean, I've spent a lot of time studying mushrooms that have medicinal effects, and those are very prominent in Chinese herbal medicine. So a lot of the medicinal mushrooms are things that I've learned from studying Chinese medicine.
Which mushroom do you like in particular?
Well, everything from shiitake to reishi, maitake. There's so many. Turkey tail mushroom. There's so many that are standard uses in Chinese medicine.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit before we move to our quick questions about the importance of psychedelics?
Yes, I was very involved with psychedelics long ago in the 1960s and wrote about them, and I'm delighted to see they're becoming, now there's so much interest in them. Yeah, I think they have tremendous potential for healing. And one thing that disappoints me at the moment, all the focus is on using them for mental and emotional disorders. I think they have tremendous potential in physical medicine as well.
Okay.
I've seen remarkable changes in people with chronic conditions. A man that I know who had very severe rheumatoid arthritis that disappeared as a result of one psychedelic session, for example. And I've seen many things like that. So when they become legally available, I really want to hope that doctors will begin using them.
Okay. And not being legal, what's your favorite experience? Well,
there's several. One is with, I've had a lot of experience with MDMA. I've seen wonderful changes in people from that. And more recently with 5-methoxy-DMT, which is the one that comes from the toad that lives in Arizona.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. The
so
toad,
I think that has tremendous potential for, all sorts of things, for, for really learning about yourself So I think they will become available soon.
Okay. And do you think healing your trauma helps
Yes.
being in better health
Yes.
condition?
Also, I think everybody has trauma in their past. It's not just some people. If it's not physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, I think everybody, this is universal.
Small or big, yeah.
Yeah, small or big. And for most people, it's never processed fully. And I think it's often the cause of disease that appears later in life.
Yeah. Do you have a concrete example of someone who got healed both first in the trauma and then physically?
There are many cases now of war veterans in America who've been doing psychedelic therapy with ayahuasca and iboga, and have had major trauma in their past and very severe emotional illness as a result that has disappeared as a result of psychedelic experience.
So let's start with our quick
Yes.
question. With the quick questions this is the end of the interview, the third chapter. Can you share 3 effective methods to reduce toxins in the body?
Number 1, most important: stop putting toxins in.
Good, good advice.
That is the most important thing.
Okay.
So you want to identify sources of toxins and stop. And then you want to take advantage of the body's natural methods for cleaning itself. So sweating, which you can do by sitting in saunas. Urination, so you increase your intake of water.
Yeah, okay.
Making sure you have regular bowel movements by the food you eat. Breathing, proper breathing, which helps eliminate things as well. So these are the natural methods that the body has, and you want to speed them up or work with them.
About the water, I've heard different things, that drinking tap water is not so helpful.
Depends what the tap water is, so you want to test the tap water and find out. In many parts of the world, tap water is not that healthy, but you've got to find out what's in it and what you need to do with it.
So you would drink at home mineral water?
I have a distiller at home, so I drink distilled water.
Okay. What's your thoughts on tea? We've already discussed.
Yes, I'm a big fan of tea, and I know a lot about it. I've studied tea in many parts of the world, and in particular, I have promoted the use of matcha green tea, the powdered tea from Japan. I think there's a great deal of research on the health benefits of tea, and also I think for many people who are addicted to coffee, if they switch to tea, that's a good thing. I won't tell people not to drink coffee, but I think tea is a very good beverage.
Yeah. What's the benefits of tea over coffee?
I think tea has more antioxidants in it and healthful compounds, and green tea especially has an amino acid called L-theanine that's relaxing, so it modifies the effect of the caffeine. And many people say they get a feeling of alert relaxation from it, or focused attention. So that's a good thing.
Okay. Next time we do an interview together, you bring your matcha.
I promise.
How would you do? You would put it with
you
water?
You put the powdered tea. You're supposed to heat the bowl, and then you put some of the powdered tea in, and then you put hot water in, and then there's a bamboo whisk that you use, or you can use an electric. You can cheat and use an electric whisk.
Okay, wow, and and it's delicious. So it's your brand is doing good.
It's doing good. It's matcha.com is the website, and we get the best matcha from Japan.
Okay, and it doesn't tea deplete iron levels?
Nothing to worry about. Most of us, it's better to. A lot of people have too much iron in their system.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but it's not a major thing with tea.
Okay. Which essential vitamins are indispensable for optimal health?
Well, I think, I generally recommend that people take a multi-nutrient supplement. The best sources of vitamins and minerals are vegetables and fruits and herbs and spices. And ideally, if you're eating a great quantity and variety of them every day, you don't have to take a supplement. But I think for insurance, it's probably a good idea. I particularly recommend that people get their vitamin D levels checked. Yeah. And if they're not optimum, to make sure you're taking a supplement for that.
Okay. If stranded on a deserted island, which 3 essential oils would you prioritize?
That's great. I would take lavender for relaxation, peppermint for stimulation, alertness.
Okay.
And let me see what else. Maybe sandalwood, just because I like that so much.
Because we were talking about Thanksgiving, amidst Thanksgiving gathering with widespread flu in your family, which essential oil would you choose to preempt illness on one side, and which one to improve post-feast digestion?
Well, let's take the second one first. For post-feast digestion, I think peppermint is a very good choice, and it probably in the form of a tea. Okay. You know, in the habit, in many of eating after dinner mints.
Yes.
That's because peppermint relaxes the stomach muscles. So if you've eaten too much, that's probably the best thing to do.
Okay.
And in terms of protection, I don't know. Maybe best not to have a family gathering if there's like really a lot of strong flu going around.
So you wouldn't come.
I wouldn't come.
How do you use essential oils?
I have a steam room at home. I like steams better than saunas, like wet heat. So I usually put essential oils in where the steam comes out. So I'm inhaling them while I'm steaming.
Okay. I'm doing the old school
But that's not bad. I tell people to put a few drops of essential oil in a pot, bring it to a boil, and you put a towel over your head. That's a very good method.
It works very well.
Very good method.
Very good method. You're not like probably a big fan of diets, but with a 3-week timeline to shed 3 kilos, what approach would you recommend?
What I said earlier is stop eating anything made with flour or sugar.
Okay.
That is the simplest method.
Yeah, true. In your view, is it healthier to carry... In your view, is it healthier to carry an extra 10 kilos or resort to the diabetic medication Ozempic? Well,
I would certainly first try losing weight and increasing exercise, and you might be able to avoid taking medication. But Ozempic is very interesting, that a lot of people are using this. I don't know what the long-term effects are going to be, whether people will regain the weight when they stop using it. We'll have to see. But I would first try, the tried and true methods of eating less, exercising more.
Observing your avoidance of desserts, you're not eating desserts anymore. You try to avoid.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
At home, I generally don't, but if I'm out, here I had sorbet for dessert, which was very good.
Okay, I was about to ask, would you indulge in an overly sweet pudding if served with love at a dinner party?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
And I try not to eat too much of it, but I would enjoy it.
Reflecting on the lessons from COVID-19,
yes.
What insights have you gleaned?
Well, first of all, I think how unprepared we were for it. And there was no excuse for that, because people could have seen this coming, years before. And now we're facing the possibility that something more could come around. So I hope we're better prepared for it. I think, the measures of social distancing and good hygiene, washing hands, wearing masks is probably a good idea. Do you indulge in wine? Yes, occasionally. I don't drink much alcohol, but occasionally I drink wine, and I like sake, Japanese sake.
Okay, it's good, delicious. Yes, that's the Asian influence.
Yes.
What put you on this path of becoming a doctor?
Well, first. My mother got me interested in plants. She was very good with plants, and her mother was very good with plants. So that really started my interest, which led me to study botany. Then I had a family physician when I was growing up who was a mentor and steered me towards studying medicine. I was always interested in the mind and how the mind affected the body, and I was very sad that when I was in college and I couldn't study that was just not of interest, and in medicine that nobody paid attention to the mind, so I just made that something I was going to find out about. And then I became disillusioned with what I'd been taught, the kind of medicine that I'd been taught. I saw it do too much harm. especially adverse reactions to medications. And I found ways to travel around the world and visit healers of different kinds and see what I could learn from them. And gradually I put together this system that I called integrative medicine.
Wow. And what's your mission now? Do you feel you have a mission?
I think it's just to continue what I'm doing and make sure that this field becomes mainstream medicine, which in the States it is becoming very rapidly, and I think it will elsewhere in the world as well.
Where do you see integrative medicine in 10 years?
Well, I've always said that one day we'll be able to drop the word integrative, and it'll just be good medicine.
Good. Wonderful. I'm going to ask you the last question of this interview, a question I'm asking to every guest on this podcast. If you had to recall memory where you felt connected, because the theme of Harvest is radical connection, a meal probably you would share with your family, what was the atmosphere? Can you describe the food, the atmosphere, the people?
That's a good question. I can think of a recent, it was actually Thanksgiving at my home in Tucson, Arizona. My daughter was there, a number of friends. We all made food together. And we had, let me see, I think we had a grilled whole salmon as the main dish. Lots of wonderful vegetables, some from my garden. And we definitely had dessert.
And as a child, would you have like this kind of memory of a happy memory as a child sharing
yes,
food with your family?
Relatives, and yes. And one of the things that I read that I thought was very discouraging was that something like fewer than 10% of American families now have even one meal together. You know, that's really a shame, because for me, growing up, meal times, you know, we were always the times that the family was together.
What would you eat?
Well, I think it was standard American food in the 1950s, which wasn't that interesting.
Okay. But the atmosphere
was good, yeah.
How many people at the table?
Usually 5, and it was always, you know, it was food cooked from scratch. So even though it wasn't, you know, I think people were not as health conscious, but it was always food. We never had prepared food or, you know, processed food.
Okay, and it's usually the opportunity for a conversation,
yes, of course.
for a nice conversation, nice update as a family.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And another question, a last question, because the theme is radical connection. You feel, can you finish my sentence? You feel radically connected when?
I know it when I feel it. You know, when I'm with another person and I feel connected, I know that there's energy flowing between us.
Thank you, Dr. Weil.
You're very welcome.
I was very happy to learn all about you and your mission about integrative medicine.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Before you leave, take pictures.
Yes.
Someone has a brain here. Good.
We're going to take 2 types of pictures. One, you're going to look into the camera.